Well, here we are, friends, with 4 short chapters to go. Today we read chapter 17 and 18. This is chapter 17, Reparation. Just then, a bright white light filled the car, and Rob's attention was taken up and away. Am I dreaming, he thought to himself, because this is the most beautiful dream I've ever seen. He lifted higher and higher, and then he broke free. He was flying, and nothing was stopping him from rising up. He saw what appeared to be a figure coming towards him, and he heard an angelic masculine voice speak to him from what seemed to be from above him. "Rob Strom, do you know why you're here?" The voice spoke to him, and he relaxed. "You are being taken on a journey of your life and your heart. You do not know what this means now, but over time, you will learn the reason for it." Rob saw himself reaching out to all the people in his life. It was as if a movie of his life was playing out before him, and he was an active observer. He saw all the women he had hurt with his selfish actions. He saw many people who wanted to be his friend and had come and gone because they couldn't stand to see him hurt himself with drugs and alcohol. The voice, which Rob now realized was God or maybe Jesus, maybe both, began to show him events in his life where he was being hurt and had allowed pent-up rage and unforgiveness to take hold of his heart. He was openly weeping as he saw his parents' cruel deed of abandonment and the years of heartache that had formed within him. As a result, building up a hard shell around his heart. And then he saw Jade as if she were an angel. He felt the deep connection to her soul and felt a small crack form in the shell around his heart. He felt a euphoric, happy feeling when he saw her, and the voice said, "Rob, this is what love feels like." As a white light and a feeling of complete and total surrender filled his entire being. It engulfed him, and he felt free. So free he lifted up even higher. The voice continued, "Rob, your lifetime is not over if you don't want it to be. There is so much for you to do. You must go back and ask for healing and forgiveness. You must find the love you've lost and shower that upon those that need you. Rob, will you go back now?" The voice boomed in his ears. He was on his knees now, praying to God to help him return. He wanted to go back and start over. He wanted to be filled with the love he had felt here in these moments. He wanted to show everyone that he could change. "Yes, Lord, please take me back. Please let me try to change and be a better man. Yes, Lord, please." At that utterance, the light started to recede. Rob saw the figure before him slowly fade out as the voice said, "Rob, I will always be with you. Just call on me whenever you are lonely or afraid, and I will be by your side. You are never alone." And then like that, he was dropped back into his body, and he gasped for air. "He's back!" a voice uttered in the darkest. "Hold on, buddy. We almost lost you, but you're fine now. You've been in an accident, and we're paramedics. We're here to help you. Hold on, man. You're going to be airlifted to the hospital now. Just try to relax." And then a shot of something soothing released all the pain he was feeling, and he dropped into a deep sleep. Morning broke over Aruba, and Jade sat up quickly in bed, abruptly awakened from a terrible dream. She had seen Rob and felt something horrible had happened. Her heart ached in a way she had never felt before, and she felt compelled to get up and look at her phone. Alejandro, who was usually able to sleep through anything, was breathing rhythmically beside her. She moved out of bed, grabbed her phone, and went out onto the bungalow's front porch. She opened her phone. She saw texts from Jenny and notifications from her news app with something about a famous singer being involved in a horrible accident last night. She was breathing more quickly now as she opened Jenny's text. "Jade, call me before you do anything else as soon as you get this message." But she didn't want to talk to Jenny now. As her fingers swiped her news app, singer Rob Strom of Raw Deal hanging on to life after a tragic accident in the Tahoe Mountains was the headline. "No!" she screamed out. "No! No, no, Rob!" She was frantic and hyperventilating, and then her phone rang. She saw Jenny's name and clicked to answer, but she couldn't speak. Jade, is that you? It's me, Jenny. Oh, Jenny, oh my God, Jenny, what do I do? Jenny, you've got to help me. I don't know what to do. She was sobbing and inconsolable. Calm down, love. I'm sending you some Reiki now to help calm your nerves. You've got to pull yourself together. You can't help him like this. Jade felt a strange sense of calm come over her, and she walked out and sat on the sand. Oh my God, Jenny, what do I do? She needed someone to help. Are you still in Aruba? Jenny was trying to remain neutral to the situation so she could be a good space holder, but this one was harder than she thought. This was Jade. She wanted to rush to her and put her arms around her. Yes, we're still here, and oh my God, what am I going to do about Alejandro? I have to go to Rob, Jenny. I simply must go. Yes, you must, Jenny said. He needs you right now, Jade. As for Alejandro, you need to be honest with him. You need to share your true heart with him. Jenny, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. Jade was sobbing again. I know. That's why I'm flying in to meet you at the hospital. I can help you. Just tell me what you need, Jenny said, gently knowing Jade could break, but she wouldn't. Oh, Jenny, you truly are the best friend in the world. I love you so much. She was starting to calm now from the Reiki and the soothing sounds of the ocean next to her. You're right. I'm strong, and I can do this. I'm going to go call my pilot. And then I'm going to go talk to Alejandro, she said more strongly now. I'll leave this afternoon. Okay, I'll send you the hospital info. I've already spoken with them. It's a little hard since Rob doesn't have any family, so they're only releasing information to his manager, Murray, right now. I've gotten a hold of him, and he knows we're coming. It's going to be all right, Jade. Jenny realized she needed to calm herself now because she couldn't tell Jade that Rob was barely holding on to life, locked in an induced coma to subdue the massive swelling in his brain. He also had broken ribs, a fractured leg, and internal bleeding, and the doctors didn't know if he would pull out of this one. The next several days were vital. Thank you, Jenny. I don't know what I'd do without you. I'll see you at the hospital, Jade said, wiping tears from her eyes. Bye, Jenny. As Jade hung up the phone, she felt a presence behind her. What's going on here, Jade? Alejandro said from the bungalow porch, his accent getting thicker now as he felt anger and confusion rise up. I hear you are leaving to go to who? Rob? Who is this man? Are you in love with him? His temper was rising more now. Jade didn't want to be here at this moment. She didn't want to hurt him. She cared for him deeply, but just not in that way. She knew she didn't love him, and had only been using him to distract her from her true feelings for someone else. At that moment, she felt small and horrible, and she struggled to find the words to say next. I can't stay with you. We both know where this is heading. Remember, we've done it before. He did remember. The days and nights at the motel, the endless love-making, and the way she took him over and had blinded him, so he had forgotten about everything else to be enveloped in her. He had pushed Joaquin away and hurt him terribly. It's my friend Rob, she said more confidently now. He's been in a bad accident in Tahoe, and he needs his friends. I'm flying out this afternoon, and Jenny's meeting me there. And what about me, Jade? I need you too. Look, what are you doing to us? Just look, Jade. It isn't fair to me. I've given you all of myself. He spoke now from his heart. I've given you all of myself, and now I'm losing you again. He sat down on the porch steps and put his head in his hands. Jade didn't know what to say to this. She realized in all her selfish behavior over the years that he had sacrificed so much for her, and it hurt her heart to see him wounded like this. I know, love, and I'm so, so sorry. I hope one day you can forgive me, she said, sitting down next to him. My God, what am I to do now? He said more to himself than to her. And Joaquin, how can I ever face him? Jade, what you're doing is wrong. I simply cannot accept it, he said with tears in his eyes as he walked down the stairs and onto the sand. She watched him break into a jog and disappear down the beach. She didn't know what he meant about not accepting this. It could mean anything. But she didn't have time to find out. She had to get to Rob. She went back to the bungalow to pack and get ready for her flight. She called to arrange a limo to the airport, and then she realized she was alone on this trip. No bodyguard to shield her from anyone, no lover to hold her hand, no sky to interfere. She was completely and utterly alone for once, and she was terrified. As Alejandro ran down the beach, he was a blur of emotions, and he didn't know which one he wanted to feel. The ones that left him sad and empty at the thought of losing Jade, or the ones that left him feeling rage and anger over her treatment of him. So he decided not to feel anything. He kept muttering to himself that he wasn't going to accept this behavior from her, and he decided that he was merely going to run until he couldn't run any further. As waves crashed alongside him, he ran for what seemed like hours. He arrived miles down the beach and in front of a small bungalow. He stood outside it, breathing deeply, trying to let his breath catch up with the feelings inside of himself. He thought his heart was going to burst right there, and all the love he felt was going to drain out onto the sand. He had never felt such a strange feeling in his chest before, and he realized that maybe this is what love feels like. He had never spoken of love to anyone, and he knew that he couldn't understand what was happening to him at this moment. Should he go back and promise Jade that he would do better, be stronger for her, and she might just take him back? No, she was focused on someone else now, and he had become an afterthought. He decided he would show her what it was like to have this hole in the heart that she had put there with her ways of only thinking about herself. He wanted so much to do something, but at that moment he couldn't make sense of what that would be. So he sat down on the sand to contemplate his next moves. Moves that he thought would bring about something that would either make Jade favor him again, or would make her fall to her knees begging God to have mercy on her soul for what she had done to him. He had to get clear on what that would be. Jade didn't know when or if Alejandro would come back. He had done something similar after their first breakup, even though the decision had been mutual then to discontinue the relationship they had and to continue as co-workers. He had promised her that there were no ill feelings, and she had believed him. He had settled into the role of her bodyguard, and all had seemed fine. What she hadn't seen were the months of agonizing he had done when she couldn't see him, agonizing over her and wanting to return to those sweet moments of surrender they had felt in each other's arms. He had hidden it well from her, and had been content to continue working for her so that he could stay in her favor. Poor Alejandro, she had thought then, and even now, that he was one of the most trusting souls she had ever met. When it came to them, she couldn't understand his feelings. And then she realized that maybe he was a little obsessed with her in a way that wasn't healthy for him. It was best that they distanced themselves from each other, and that she stopped teasing him like she was prone to do. She realized that she had wanted someone to feel so strongly for her, and that he was the one she had focused on. It was something magnetic that kept pulling them together, but it wasn't love. It wasn't the love she felt now for Rob, who was hanging on to life and needed her. She just knew this was different, that the electricity she felt and the bond that had formed between her and Rob after only a few days had been the feeling she had been looking for all her life. A love that transcended time and space and was calling to her now to come. She had to get moving. The front desk called to let her know her limo was there, and she gathered up her bags and walked out the door of the bungalow. Alejandro was nowhere in sight, and she wished him a silent goodbye, hoping that he wasn't doing anything foolish. She had arranged for him to stay there as long as he needed, and then she shut the door on what they had done together there, choosing to remember the fondness she had for him and all the magical moments they had made. Chapter 18. Surrender. At Barton Memorial Hospital in Tahoe, Rob was hanging on to life. The doctors and nurses in the ICU were doing everything in their power to keep him stable. Word had gotten around that the star was there, and well-meaning hospital staff were trying to catch a glimpse of him if they could. A small crowd of fans was gathered outside, and the police had called in an officer to make sure they were peaceful and that no one tried to sneak inside and disrupt anything. Hospital security had been notified and was keeping an eye on the ICU, ensuring that some girl dressed as a nurse or doctor didn't try to gain access to where he was. You never know what people might do when faced with the fact that some star whose picture they fell in love with was going through some drama. Fans could get weird sometimes, was what the security officer thought as he watched the ICU room door. Jenny had made the next flight out to Tahoe as soon as she had hung up with Jade. She had packed lightly and called Logan to let him know what was going on. He had been in some work meeting and couldn't focus on what she was telling him, but she knew she got her point across and hoped he would understand that this was how she helped her friends. She went to them when they needed her, and that was what made her such a special friend to many who depended on her strength when they were going through rough times. She realized that while she loved her work, she loved her friends even more, and Jade was like a sister to her. She wanted to be there for her to help her deal with the range of emotions that she would be feeling when she completely realized what was going on. Jade sat on the small jet nursing a Bloody Mary and thinking back to her last conversation with Rob, how she had wanted to confess herself to him right there. She had felt something so strongly for him, but she hadn't let herself have that feeling. Why was she always pushing love away? It was because every time she acknowledged love, a small piece of her heart got hurt by someone she thought she trusted. First, her parents, who always tried to buy her love with expensive purchases to soothe her. She had loved the pony and the Porsche, but those things didn't hold her at night and stroke her hair after a bad dream. And her mother just wasn't available for those things. She was too busy with her charity groups and her tea parties, and a nanny had been hired to direct the attention to her daughter that she couldn't give. And then Carlo had ripped her heart apart. The only man she had ever opened up to about her feelings had stomped on her heart like it was nothing. Slowly, over time, her love had hardened into a ball in her chest, and that wasn't going to soften for anyone ever again. That is until she had met Rob Strom. That first night at the party in his home, she had realized that something was different about him. She had felt a strange knowing in her heart that she almost didn't recognize, and she had become afraid of that feeling. When she saw him again, the sight of his beautiful face had made her so happy with the way he listened to her heartfelt feelings and desires, the way he looked at her when she spoke. She realized now that she'd been foolish to deny the fact that she had fallen for him from that first moment their eyes had met. And now she might never have the chance to tell him that she was so in love with him that she couldn't stand it. The thought of losing him forever filled her with angst, and she downed the Bloody Mary and then broke into tears. He must survive. He simply must. Yet she didn't know yet how important her being there would be to him. She hadn't seen the vision or heard the words that had come to him. She only knew that she needed to get there, so she focused on each moment as small baby steps that would lead her to him at that moment when he needed her most. Everything else could wait. Jenny arrived first and made her way up to the ICU. Murray, who had been overseas with the other band he managed, had called ahead to let hospital staff know that the two girls were there on behalf of the singer and that information could be released to them until he was able to make it there. Jenny had thought about how she might approach any healing with Rob while he was in a coma. She knew from her studies of how Reiki affects people that she would only be helping him by sending him healing energy. So she had started distance Reiki on him as soon as she heard the news. His body was surrounded by the healing white light of Reiki, and she hoped it was having a soothing effect on his soul, which was most likely in shock from the events of the past few days. She entered the ICU to find Rob engulfed in tubes and machines, and her heart ached for him. She knew from Murray that the accident had been alcohol-related, and she chastised herself for not trying harder to help him. But she soon realized that sometimes these things must play out on their own, and that maybe this was Rob's wake-up call, so to speak. She sent up prayers for him and then went outside to wait for Jade. She knew that Jade would need the most attention right now. Jade had called ahead for a limo and realized that these were all the things she never had to be concerned about before when Alejandro was taking care of her. Her heart twinged again at the thought of him, and she wished and hoped he was okay. The limo driver had noticed the star's name on his appointment list and had gotten anxious at the thought of her. It wasn't every day he was driving an internationally famous pop star around. He tried to make polite conversation with her, but she seemed preoccupied and had put up the privacy screen between them. He also took note that she was going to the hospital and realized that maybe things weren't going okay in her life right now. He could be a good listener, he thought, as he imagined them in bed together. When the limo arrived at the hospital, she paid and left him a handsome tip, but nothing more, as his dreams of them making out in the back seat had faded back into reality again. Jade rushed inside and up to the ICU to find Jenny waiting there. She burst into tears at the sight of her dear friend who had come to be there with her. "Oh, Jenny, thank you so much for coming. How is he?" She couldn't wait to see him, but at the same time was frightened for what she might see. "Sit down a minute, Jade. I need to tell you a few things," Jenny said, knowing this conversation wouldn't be easy. "Rob is in very serious condition. He might not make it. His injuries are so severe. They have him in an induced coma right now." "Oh my God, Jenny, why didn't you tell me?" Jade burst into tears. I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do, Jenny?" Jade's world spun about before her eyes. "We can be there for him, and you must talk to him, Jade. Talk to him and tell him everything you are feeling. No more holding back now. Understand?" For Jenny had known from that first electric moment that she had seen between them, this was the love of many lifetimes. She knew that if Rob could just hear the words that were on Jay's heart, that they just might pull him out of this. He was so starved for true love that it might be the tipping point for his body to kick in and heal. She also knew that he was surrounded by angels who were watching over him, and she truly believed that miracles could and did happen all the time. "Jade, we also need to pray for him. Pray with all your heart and ask God to forgive and repair all the actions that have brought you both to this moment." "Oh, Jenny, I want so much to help him. I'll do anything at this point. I'm ready to see him now," she said as her nerves kicked in again, afraid of what she might see. "Go on then. He's waiting for you," Jenny said, letting go of Jade's hand. Jade rose and walked to the ICU door. She had never felt such strength and yet such weakness at the same time. She held her breath as she opened the door, and her heart fell when she saw Rob surrounded by machines and looking so small and helpless in the bed. "It's me, Rob. It's Jade. I'm here, love. Can you hear me?" She felt foolish speaking to him like this. But Jenny said Rob could hear her, so she continued as she sat down next to him and gently took his hand. And then she felt it again as their hands touched. The magnetism and electricity were still there, and she felt a tiny flinch in his hand. "Rob, please get better. I have so much to tell you, my love. You must come back so we can talk," she said, looking at him through the tears. "I have so much to tell you." Rob, even though locked in the coma, could hear her voice, and it was like heaven itself had opened up and showered him with her love. He could feel it now, even through this fog, and he knew then that he had made the right decision to return. He wanted more than ever to wake up, but he couldn't yet. Things needed to happen first before the miracles could occur. So he was content to lay there and feel her words enter his heart. He tried to squeeze her hand, but he didn't know if she felt it or not. He wanted to go right now and sweep her off her feet, but he was locked here in this bed, and he knew it wasn't time yet. Jade could only spend so many minutes at a time in the room before the nurses would come kick her out to take Rob's vitals and make him comfortable. They noticed that his vitals had improved since the red-haired girl had gotten there, so they let her stay a few minutes longer each time she came in. After several visits with Rob, Jade realized she needed a break and asked Jenny to take over. "Jenny, I need to walk around a bit. I'm exhausted." "I know. The staff told me there was a small room in the lounge with a bed for you if you want to spend the night. I figured you wouldn't leave, but that's up to you," Jenny said, knowing that they would both need to rest to maintain their resolve. No one knew how long Rob would be there, but she didn't want to go there yet with Jade. As Jade walked the hospital corridors, she realized that she had nowhere to go without Rob. She didn't want to have to go out these doors without him. She just couldn't do that. She passed by the cafeteria and grabbed a coffee, and then continued to walk until she came across a small chapel on the first floor. Something compelled her to look in, and she saw an altar with a cross at the front of the room. She stepped in, feeling peace emanate from within the room. At the same time, she felt a little nervous being in this holy space. She had never gone to church before, and she didn't pray or talk to God, so she didn't understand what to do in there. She just realized she felt comfort coming from the room, and she felt so tired, so much so she needed to sit. So she moved closer to the cross on the altar and sat down on a chair. "Is there something I can help you with?" A gentle voice came up behind her, and she turned to see who it was. The chaplain, who was always prepared for these moments, saw a young girl with so much sadness in her eyes. "Young lady, you're going through some pain right now. I can see it in your eyes. Would you like to talk about it?" At those words, Jade burst into tears and through sobs told the chaplain about Rob's condition. "You see, he simply must pull through. I love him so much and I've never been able to tell him until now. And I've hurt so many people along the way. I don't know what to do to make amends." "Jade, you must pray to God. You must ask him to forgive you. He can help you if you will only let him. If you feel called, you must invite him into your heart. He can help your friend to heal and can help you feel better about yourself." The chaplain knew that God could heal all wounds if the person would only surrender to him. "I've never done this before, but I can try," Jade said, hesitantly, not sure if what the chaplain said was true. "God doesn't care how you pray or the exact words that you say, Jade. He only wants to feel your heart open up to him, and he will take care of the rest," he said as he stood, so he could leave her to her prayers. And so with a feeling of complete supplication, Jade poured her heart out to God, looking upon the cross as she asked God and Jesus to enter her life, just as the chaplain had said. She prayed for Rob and asked God to please send him back to her so she could share her love with him. And then she asked on her knees for forgiveness for all she had done to Alejandro. As she prayed, she felt lighter, and the dark cloud over her heart lifted. God entered her being, and in those moments of prayer, she felt that everything was going to be okay. "If I just keep praying," she thought, "God will surely hear me and everything will be all right." And so she stayed and prayed for what seemed like forever. And in between her prayers in the chapel, she visited Rob's bedside and spoke of all the beautiful moments they would have in their future if he would only return to her.